Johnny Hill was great again. How much mental resilience has he had to show? Because certainly, I think you said it, and I would say I think he was really unfortunate to miss out on World Cup selection. You think literally 12 months ago he was a starter for England, and obviously now seems to be on the peripheries, but certainly was going to the World Cup. So how much mental strength has he had to show? Because he started the season off really well. And it could have been really easy for him to be down and be really gutted, which I'm sure he was, but you wouldn't know it from his performances.
No, I don't think I don't think you would have seen it. I think he's actually playing better in the last few games, and he's played better at any time. For us, for Sale, he's had to reframe what his drivers are, and there's probably his plan for the next 4 years, because what used to motivate him isn't there in terms of the next World Cup. Potentially, he'll be probably too old for that, although he might disagree. He's got a meeting with Stephen Borthwick on Tuesday, as are seven others of our players. So there's still light there for him to play international rugby, and I think he's playing to the standard that would suggest or indicate that he's capable.
In terms of an injury update, there are a few guys that went down with some stingers. I think Ben Curry was down a few times after some big hits. Nick Shona, after a huge hit on Niall Annett, was down for a little bit. In terms of those stingers, how have the players kind of come out of the weekend and at the start of this week?
A little bit sore. That was the feedback we were getting on Saturday and Sunday. We've reduced the training loading to the tune of 20%, so we get that payback by way of effort on Friday night. So, I feel like we've looked after them. I think they feel like we've looked after them. They've all come through, barring Bev, who has fractured a pea-sized bone in his toe. So we don't know the length of it. Because he's able to move, we thought it was turf toe like 2 weeks ago. That's the common injury. Turf toe, hyperextended toe is a prop, very common in the scrum, but it was painful and bruised, but wasn't showing any of the real signs of like a tendinopathy in the foot. And so we took him to get it scanned, and he's got a really small fracture that was just opening up under the amount of stress that you put on through a game, so it's getting sore and sore as it was opening and closing in the game. So it's obviously something he can play through, because he did twice, but not something that we want to affect his toe by way of incurring arthritis down the line, which would be a nightmare to handle. So it's important that we let it stiffen and settle in the next few weeks. How long that needs to take is, I think, it's partly on the recommendation of the consultant we're going to see this week. This PRP injection you can get to thicken the ligaments, because it's such a small thing, but it could have a ripple effect on his mechanics moving forward. So he's not up for selection this weekend, Bevan Rod. There's the free one for you. The rest I'll keep them about.
In terms of any players returning from injuries, I know you said last week there are a few guys like Jean-Luc, Rafi, Manu who were close. Are any of those guys, in theory, available for selection? Are they still another week?
Yeah, so Rafi's having the button taken out in his jaw. They have a little button to keep the elastic bands on, so that means he's eligible to play. JL's a couple of weeks off, Manu a week off. Was that it, wasn't it? By the big names. Sam James 2 to 3 weeks. Toulouse 2 weeks.
Presumably meant Luke, not Sam James.
Sorry, yeah, Luke, yeah. Sam's good to go. Sam's impervious. Sam's played more rugby than anyone in the squad, because we've done our loading. And he's good to go again if selected.
It was announced on Friday that Joe Jones has left to go to Scarlets with immediate effect. Was that a decision, I assume, that was kind of agreed mutually in terms of both the club were accepting of allowing him to go, as well as him perhaps wanting more minutes?
It's a bit bigger than that, really. I mean, there's some of the factors that led into it. What's best for us is to keep a tight head of that quality within the squad for eventualities if we get a couple of injuries or an injury to tight head. Joe hasn't played in the rugby this year. But, it's what's quite obvious to him and us that he was perhaps away down the pecking order as it stood at the moment. They had Samson Lee have to retire through Achilles, and for personal reasons they couldn't select Sam Warburton, so they needed a starting tight head. So this is a lad that's got a kid, he's got another one popping out in the next 2 weeks, gets to move back to his ancestral home, where is his ambition to play for Wales, gets to be first choice, and his wife gets the support that she needs for the second kid. We profess to care probably more about the person than the player here, and make sure everything's right, it's the right place for them to be, it's the right pathway for them, they're getting the game time and they're getting the progression in the game, and all things. And this was on the generosity of Simon Orange, I might add, because he's under contract.
Yeah.
He forewent any transfer fee. We didn't make him play through his contract because it was the best thing for Joe and his family moving forward. So, it's just another sign of the intent from top down, really, is what the club has for the person. I'm very happy. I'm really happy. It wasn't an easy decision because we're wearing a Sale Sharks hat. Like I say, it's best we keep him, but I think the ripple effect and the understanding of everyone who comes here is that they're going to get looked after for all the right reasons is perhaps a bigger string to your bow than just having players and warehousing players.
Are there any plans to immediately replace him, or with the rise of someone like Asher Opoku-Fujor, is that a position where actually you feel that you want to give him more game time and more exposure? We
have to now, don't we? Because we haven't got Joe. And what we saw from Asher against Newcastle, he's got some really, really good qualities that suggest he's going to be a very special player. That's a factor as well, Kieran, obviously, how well he's come through.
Just one final one. How is the search going for an injury replacement for Tom?
Well, it's a similar conversation. We've looked at all the load in and around, do we get another player and warehouse him to the detriment of the lads that we want to come through, that we want to bring through? And we looked at the loading of all the lads thus far, and we've had a few come back, as you know, a little bit later through injury. JL, who's been injured, Tom Ellis, who's out for the next 3 or 4 weeks, Ben, who came back a little bit later. And the reality is that we're probably looking for a player to help us out from the months, this month, December, because they're starting to fatigue, being 8 games in, through to the end of January. Then we have a break. So then we'll be looking for someone for 2 months before we're able to freshen them up again and go again. This person has to be better than a Ben Curry and a Rince Van Ryn and a Dan Dupree and a JL Dupree. It's quite a high bar, isn't it? I don't think there are that many. So unless we're going to get someone to add to those 4 that we couldn't rotate, bearing in mind we've got Ben Bamber coming through and Ruben Birch and Sam Dugdale, all really good guys who were young and coming through, we'd block their pathway and they would have to rotate a really good player with those 4 who need the game time anyway, and we've only got 2 months to do it. So you'll be getting someone in for 6 months when we need them for 2. It didn't make sense financially or by way of loading and, like I say, warehousing players. So we're not on the search. We call time on that.
Yeah. Right. Cheers, Alex. Thank you.
Thank you, Kieran. Cheers.
Hi, Alex. Can we just go back to your man, Bevan?
Yeah.
Is he in a boot?
No.
So how is he able to stop? Well, you can't stop using your foot unless you hop round.
No, it's fine. Running around is generally okay. We had a bet on with Nav, because Nav's I'm worried about Bev. His foot's bruising. It's not presenting as it should do the last 2 weeks, even though it's getting and playing really. We played really well at the weekend with it. And this happens on Sunday. And Bev comes in Monday. I'm like, Bev, if you're not training, you can't play. And Nav thinks he might be able to get you through to the game, but you're going to start losing form. It's not fair for you to do that. It's not fair on everyone else who is training. And that's the policy we have. And he was so adamant he was going to train today that Nav took him for an extra scan, but it wasn't showing that much, where usually you would take him for that extra consultancy like opinion. And this flagged up, you know, and to the extent where Nav's like, you fractured a toe, and Bev's like, oh well, that's all right then. I'm relatively happy with the fact that I'm not training or playing because I fractured a bone in my toe. And then I had a look at the X-ray, and it's so infinitesimally small. He's like, well, that's not very impressive, is it? Like, he was pissed off with the fact it was really small, and no doubt he's getting stick off the lads right now. But it does affect the stability of your big toe. Not to the extent where he can't run around, act to go, be life and soul of the parties, all those things, and he's not in pain as he's walking. But when you put it through the stresses and strains of making 10 tackles and 10 carries and hitting 16 rucks and winning all those scrum penalties that he did at the weekend, then it starts to take its toll, and it will just get worse and chronically worse over time. So it's better we look after him now than we have to manage him forever, potentially from February onwards if we pushed him through.
And is it just a case of, it's not something you need to pin, it's just something you just got to give time to?
Yeah, honestly, they're thinking it, and I don't take me out of context because we've got to take him to a consultant, but just thickening the ligaments around it should probably protect it enough in a week or two, best case, for him to play without pain as he goes through the 50-minute mark of a game, because he's good to the 50-minute mark. In fact, it didn't really hurt him until he brought him off, but there's obviously something there. So.
And just on Ernst, he's gone through the century, as he is the new John O'Ross. I mean, does he just keep on confounding you, because he just seems to have one of those, I'm touching wood now, one of those engines that just keeps on going?
Yes, he does, in terms of his work rate and energy. He'd never, and he's still all smiles, he'd never admit to me if he's showing signs of fatigue, but on some level they all are, as they do at this point in the season. So it's probably up for us to pull him back a little bit if we want to maintain that consistency of effort and intensity that he's shown. We have to. It's, I think, ethically bound to look after Ernst, given the number of minutes and how hard he goes at it.
Excellent. Thank you, Alex.
Cheers, Chris.
Hey, Al, can I jump in? You were talking about a little bit about short-term recruitment. Can I ask about how the sort of transfer market is looking for next summer? With we've seen quite a few English guys going over to France, salary caps going up with quite a few different moving parts. And I know technically you're not allowed to speak to players yet, but how are things looking at the present moment?
It's mainly retention for us. We are in negotiation with a few lads who have been with us for a while and understanding what their market value looks like, minus a percentage, because we believe we'll look after them better. You know, and that's the policy we've gone after. Being able to recruit a strong squad is, we can't go top end for anyone. There's always someone with more money and more need, more space within their cap for a certain calibre or type of player, and we've said we'll be competitive, but we can't go top end if we want to have the strongest squad we've got. We are not, like I say, we're not looking to recruit in any one area. It's more about retention of what we've got at present. I will add this as a caveat. In my experience, my limited experience, there's always 2 or 3 that you've had planned for your future that have other plans for themselves and their own families. That will happen.
And so the salary cap going up, is that, do you know if you're planning to spend up to that, or
yeah.
Is that had an effect on negotiations?
Yes, but all the increases in cap are taken up by the increasing market value of our already resident players. You know, we're quite proud of talking about the young squad we've got, the mainly young squad. We've got the core of the squad, if you will, which is 23, 24 years old, and their salary rises as their experience and the market value does. Like, we've got 8 people, like I say, meeting Stephen on Tuesday. That's gone from 4 in previous years to a couple when I first joined. With that increase in attention comes increase in salary, so we've accounted for that within the cap.
Can you say who those 8 are?
I think I am. I think I can. they're not all part of the squad. He's just meeting with them. I wasn't told not to say it. So the 4 that you'd imagine: Manu, George, Tom Curry, Bev and Rod, the 4 World Cuppers. You mentioned him, Johnny, through form. Carps and Roebuck in the backfield, who have been going great guns, and there's quite a lot of noise in and around them. And Joe Carpenter. That's it, innit? That's 8.
Okay. And just one.
Don't say Carps twice. Sorry, go on.
You haven't missed anyone off.
Carps, Roebuck, Bev, Manu, George, Tom, Ben, Curry, Johnny Hill.
And are you aware of any French interest in any of your players? Is that something that's come on your radar at all?
Not yet. Oh yeah, Gus Creevy, but that's before he came here. Toulon, I think, were interested in him when he turned them down because he wanted to be part of this. Some interest in Gus Warr from Edinburgh. They don't mind poaching our players, Edinburgh. So we're in negotiations with him, and quite a long way in negotiations with him. Positive, I'll say, Kieran, at the moment, because we want to obviously keep him as well. I'm sure someone will come in for Manu, but he's turned down bigger offers last year to be here. There's no player that's come to me that said, I've got this and I want this as yet. We're still sitting down at the table with them, talking about our future here.
Great. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Chris. Cheers. Well, have you heard anything? Sorry, Dan. Have you heard anything? Like, you hear stuff. Things get posted on Ruck, and I've got no idea. You're probably the first. You've heard something, haven't you? What have you heard, Dan?
No, not necessarily.
Oh, what do you mean? That's a terrible answer. Then that's even worse than not telling me. Is alluding to the fact there might be something out there. Who's after who?
No, it was more in the light of Lewis Ludlam going and potentially a couple others going, and this seems to be a quite interesting market right now. Yeah,
it's a brutal part of the job that you think you know where someone's at. You think you've got the best environment and you're building like we are, and there's a lot of excitement and buzz around it, and yet that doesn't fit for everyone that you've made those plans for. Like, this is the squad we want to 25, 26. Like I say, there's a few that left at the end of the season last year, Cooney and Acker, for family reasons, and I've learnt to cope with it better. It's not about me. It's never about me, but not to take it as personally, and just to understand that's part of the job. There's always going to be 2 or 3 that you think that you would have kept, and probably 2 or 3 that you had in the plans and you don't want, I imagine, moving forward. So that's the part of the job you've got to flow the most with, I think.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Dan. Cheers, mate.
Alex, so how are you doing? Sorry to follow up on that there. When you say Tuesday, is that Tuesday today or Tuesday next week?
Tuesday for who? For us?
For Steve meeting the 8.
Tuesday next week, yeah.
Next week, okay,
next
grand.
Week.
And that's a training ground visit he's making.
This is a really good initiative. This is just another. I don't think they'll be offending me mentioning this either. So, what they used to do is have a couple of days of a camp, which was agreed to, and they'd go away for 2 days, usually on a Monday and Tuesday. They'd be beaten up anyway on the Monday, so they won't be able to do anything. They miss Tuesday sessions, and it'll be really adverse on the team's prep, any team's prep, the whole country's team's prep, because everyone's got 2 or 3 lads in there. Now, what they're doing to spend more quality time with the players is going to where those players live and spending an afternoon with those players, just one afternoon, twice, and going through their games with them and the prospects and what they've got to do, I guess, to get into that squad. They're able to see more players, spend more time with more players over that afternoon. It's brilliant for us because it means we can arrange our training day around when they're not meeting with both. So he came up and asked me what I thought. I thought that's brilliant, and is these dates good? And yeah, and we talked about these players and more, but these are the guys that he's obviously flagged up to come and have a chat to. And like so, this will obviously be nationwide. It has to be, doesn't it? So I'm sure there'll be lots more than what he's able to select from for a squad to maybe get a feel for the kind of people they are as well in the squad moving forward. Really smart, I think.
Okay, that sounds good. Just to revert to what Kieran was asking earlier about Johnny Hill, I'm just curious, a player in a bit of adversity like that who mightn't be getting the selection with the testing, was he open, or was he? Did he seek you out for a chat, or what way did he approach moving on from that sort of a disappointment?
We did speak about it. We spoke about the importance of having to reframe. I've actually left it to somebody else in this department. Like we talk rugby, me and Johnny, and how he applies himself in the week, but for his longer term goals and by way of being confidential and me not understanding the whole of him, which I think is quite important for Johnny. You know, he's quite a relaxed kind of fella, and I don't think he wants to let me into that degree. We've got Wayne Hoyle in-house, been in-house today. He was ex-SBS commander, longest serving, and he's just part of this mental skills programme we put together by way of mentoring. So we've got him who looks after senior players. There's 4 or 5 that come under his remit, and Callum Clark who looks after some very junior players, 4 and 5, and then we pick up the rest of the squad, and we'll apply one of those 2 mentors or more if we think they need extra help. So it's just part of the thing that we're trialling. Actually, I don't think anyone else is doing it. Rather than have one sports psych, we're pulling on 4 or 5 people in different areas to upskill them specifically, and that's just one element that's obviously working at the moment.
Okay, that's very interesting. Just finally for me, Gus Warr, you mentioned there, I spoke to him earlier, just his development in the last season and a half. I mean, you couldn't put it into context how he's gone from being on the fringes to like playing so many games for you guys.
Honestly, I think I probably underestimated him again, like everyone has most of his life, if I'm being really honest about it. He is his first choice quality, and you've got someone like a Rafi Quirk in your squad as well, who has such X factor, such ability. You think, geez, like he can do things that other people can't do. But what Gus does consistently well all the time, a lot of other people can't do. You know, he isn't the fastest, the most powerful, but he's got to be one of the best decision makers, game managers in the halfback position that I've been lucky enough to work with. And at the start of the season, I was like, who's our number one? Is it Gus? Is it Raf? And I don't think it matters as long as they're both on form and we're able to use them both. I know we're very lucky to have them both, and that's why I want to keep them both, and that's part of the salary cap management. Normally you have one person who gets paid the lion's share, don't you, and somebody else who's quite obviously a second choice. I don't really see that the case with these two now, and that's Gus. That he's changed my mind from the obvious X factor that Rafi has to the consistent ability to put the ball in the right place at the right time, and that's an X factor. It's just not as showy as a lot of the 9s in the league. Yeah, it's my failing, yeah. Huh?
Just put context, Alex. How difficult is it for Alex to get somebody to change Alex Anderson's mind? Is it difficult?
I would say no. I'd say no. No, I think I'd like to be pretty open. I'm a stubborn. In fact, yeah. There's no preach like the converted, is there? You know, he's definitely converted me from someone who sent him on loan to Doncaster 2 years ago, that had him in through injury cover, that's now thinking like, I want him to be here forever. Do you know what I mean? That's so, like I am a disciple of Gus Warr. Jesus, don't write that. Like, most of my motivation is around keeping him, you know, in a Machiavellian-esque sense, like under the thumb, like keep and drive, because that's how he performs best. But no, I'm really appreciative. I will tell him how I appreciate him being around.
Okay, thanks for your time. Cheers.
All right.
Good weekend.
Cheers, Liam. We go, good boys. Oh,
Hello.
yeah. Sorry. Go on. Got 10 minutes left here, but
Can I just go ahead.
But in for a quick one, Alex.
yeah. Go. Shoot.
I know you've got Harlequins this weekend, but after that you've got a couple of weeks in Europe. It's just a reflection on your group, which is your reward for making the Premiership final is another team that made that final, beaten finalists in the Champions Cup and the double champions in La Rochelle. It's a nice easy draw for you.
What a group. Yeah. What a group. I think that's the motivation for us. Yeah, you know, we'll know where we stand in the whole of Europe and probably South Africa, like you say. They are the best teams, or in the top upper echelons of teams in every country round and about us. So, and if we go into this, you know, top of the league, then we're going with that reputation ourselves. We've got a big job to do at Quins to stay there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've got a good recent record at Quins, haven't you? And but I mean, it's. I mean, how important is the Champions Cup to you, Alex?
It's always important because it's the best competition with the best teams in the world. It's really important that you give it the respect you deserve, by way of fielding really competitive teams. Making the separation from the Premiership because it is a different intensity and a different kind of buzz, and you actually enjoy it, like really enjoy going away to Dublin, which I'm sure we will, and to Cape Town. You come back just a more experienced and more worldly wise as players. I'm going to use it for that kind of a platform as well as to test our mettle.
Yeah. And how different is it from the Premiership? I mean, it's obviously teams you don't play every season.
It's all knockout, really, isn't it? It feels like a knockout anyway. You got to win your home games and get the odd point or two away, at best, if you want to qualify. So every game feels like a must-win. That's really good experience. Really good, because it gets you in that kind of finals mindset with big crowds and all the razzmatazz that comes with it, all the white noise or the increased press coverage, and you've got to be able to block it all out and focus on what you're doing, what you're going to do well against a team you don't really know, because they know the lads to play against week in, week out. So it's different on so many fronts. You coach it differently. Like I say, you separate it from the Premiership. And look to enjoy it. Look to relish the challenge. Like,
yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Alex. Go well Friday night.
Good man. Thank you. How are you doing, Brendan? Yeah, I'm good, mate. Are you?
Me, can't complain. Can't complain at all. It's good to see a smile on your face. Obviously, start having tail like.
Oh, yeah, it's not for that. It's just the other last interviewer. I get to go home after this.
That's not too bad. I won't keep you too long then. So, obviously, as Paul was saying, you're playing Stade Francais in 2 weeks at home. So, how does that kind of impact the kind of squad you'll pick for this week coming?
It doesn't. Stade doesn't impact this squad. We are very conscious of, like I said, the load-in, players coming back in, big players coming back in who need to get up to form, need to get to form quickly, and the wellness, the psychological wellness. The cortisone levels are just going and going and going and going and going. So conscious of that fact in the selections that are going to come over the next month. But what we said right from the start is that we are going to go best team, balls out, for this first Premiership block and see where we land and see how we feel after that. And we're 7 games in and we've made good on 6 out of those 7 games, Kieran. We'll keep coming back to Exeter because it's good to whip yourself in it with a poor performance.
And then obviously you're playing Quins there this weekend, and obviously as Paul kind of rightly said, I was doing a thinking, obviously you've got a very good record against them in the Premiership yourself, obviously taking the seal. So how does that fill you with confidence going forward against them this weekend, and how will you approach that tactically with them? Yeah,
not a lot, to be honest. I think you underestimate Quins at your peril. We were 9 games on the bounce, Kieran. You probably quote me on that at home last time. We talked about a lot of their ability to play with tempo and have trick plays, and quality players were good in the front foot, and they kicked 50 kicks in play. The more kicks it was counted than any other game last year, and they're barred up physically and they beat us at home. So, like, I'm talking about Exeter, but that one stings, and that was a year and a half ago or a year ago. So we've looked at that, and then you can compare that to the stats that you can see this week, which is they run the most, get the quickest ball, have the most rucks, the most passes. They could lean into either one of these game plans and do it pretty well. There's awareness of what they can bring, and then actually focusing on what we're good at, and trying to impose that on them after you've got an understanding of what they can bring, and making sure you focus on your own game. So none of it really, thinking I had them pegged last year and getting well and truly beat at home, being top of the table, and sometimes the mentality that brings with looking over your shoulder rather than looking forward and seeing how you're going to push on. All these little things fire red flags for me. So I've been on it this week in terms of making sure that we understand the threat level and the mammoth challenge that we've got going down there. Them two in the bounce, losing in front of their own crowd, getting beaten well and truly by Saracens 2 weeks ago. We'll get them at the best. I'm no doubt of that. That's the challenge, isn't it?
So you're just prepared for kind of impactful performance by them as well, yeah?
Yeah, like, it's difficult to know what they'll bring, like what they'll bring. But Easthausen's going to be at his most physical. Don Brandt's going to be running those hard lines off Care. Smith's going to be itch kicking. They've got two powerful wingers, and they've got a really smart 9 in Care, who's a really good kicker. So if they lean into that game model, then it's difficult to know what they're going to throw at you. You've just got to be ready for well, you've got to bar up physically. They'll be expecting that, but ready for a change in style, because they're smarter than just a fast break, quick tap transition team. They're better than that.
Yeah, no worries. Cheers, Alex. You enjoy the rest of your night, sure.
Thank you very much. You've got me all wound up again. All right, thanks for your time, boys. I appreciate it.